the development manager for Privateer Press. It's good to have you on the channel with us.
Well, thanks for having me on.
And we just wanted to ask a couple questions. We've already done 2 interviews today. So the first question is, how did you get involved in Warmachine Hordes? Why did you end up with Privateer Press?
Well, I started out with Warmachine Hordes by just going to a local game store and received a demo back in the summer of 2003 when the initial battle boxes came out. Just a few like support units and solos, and just from the very first time I tried out the game of Warmachine, I was just instantly hooked. I was like, this is the best miniatures game that I've ever played. I've got to be involved in this. And before too long, I was a volunteer press ganger for Privateer Press, demoing Warmachine to new people. I was also writing for Notebook Magazine, participating in the playtest program as one of the early external playtest group leads, writing organized play formats, winning tournaments, and various other things. Like, it all starts to blur together, but it was one growing mass of interest and involvement with Privateer Press. And then in the summer of 2008, I had the opportunity to start working there full time. And so the first thing I really worked on for Warmachine Hordes was working with Jason Souls on Warmachine Mark II. And we had the whole field test, and I headed up that effort, and time went on, and more games were made, lots more Warmachine figures, and here we are.
Mark II is a pretty successful first project for you, and things would go real well all the different board games.
Yeah, we were talking just earlier today about Mark II and about the rule set, and with judging over in the events hall this year, a lot of the questions are really not like detailed rules questions even, but just is this distance measured okay? Is this line of sight angle okay? Just like the basics that you kind of need a judge to help with. But the rules are nice and tight right now. That makes me pretty happy, due to both my involvement in Mark II and Warmachine Hordes development, and also with the Infernals.
So some of the other questions that we had kind of regarding playtesting, since that's something that you're really involved in, one of the things we've had a lot of questions about convergence. So when you're developing a new faction with completely new rules like induction, is that something where it's really difficult to come up with then balance mechanics, or is that something like an idea you had from the start?
There were certain elements that we had in place from the start. Like, we knew we wanted a lot of interaction. We knew we wanted this sort of clockwork machine on the table. The very first version of induction that I drafted, there was a unique induction mechanic for every single warjack. So that was too complicated.
Yeah, I can see that.
So eventually we came up with the version that we have now. Instead of it being various triggers, it's when you spend the first focus you spend in a turn, you can allocate a focus to another warjack within that distance. And that still gives that real machine-like interaction sort of feel without being too much of a burden on the players. So I'm really happy with where we wound up on that, and with convergence in general, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're really nice. I picked up a little bit of convergence myself. I'm still painting them, but I'm getting there. So one of the other questions that we had is, when you're developing new models for the game, how do you balance the need to have different playstyles represented in factions while keeping each faction kind of unique with its own feel and its own theme?
Well, a lot of the development at Privateer Press typically happens from a top-down standpoint. So usually the ideas come first and the mechanics come second. And then we work to fit them in correctly to their own factions. Like, we know there's certain keystones, certain aspects of a faction that are constant and important, things that we have to keep in mind. The Squire and Stormsmiths, Journeyman Warcaster, just using Signar as an example. But for every faction, you can think in your own mind, oh yeah, I know, Scorn, gotta think about Beast Hand, Protector, gotta think about Fire, Forsaken, on and on and on. Not to get too wrapped up in it, but when we do that sort of top-down design, we definitely want to be true to the vision of what that model is supposed to be, really express it both in the sculpt and in the rules. And on the rare occasions that we do say, hey, we really want to give this faction this new element, this new playstyle option or something, then we do it more of a bottom-up design where we have some mechanical ideas in place first, and then we've got to work more on the opposite end. How do we make this character fit right? Who do they know? Who do they belong with? Who do they report to? All that kind of thing. So it's all very interrelated.
Sure. And then our final question for you is, because you do so much with playtesting and you have new models coming out, and how they interact with all the different casters, is there a particular take a second look at that you think is kind of representative?
I think that while there are definitely some models that come to mind like that, it's also always changing. Like over in the Iron and Gauntlet event that's going on right now, I saw a lot of caster and battle group compositions that I didn't expect, a lot of models and units that I didn't expect. So it's hard sometimes to even keep up on what is the community like and not like right now, because it's just always in flux. Even the top players in events like this are bringing new things to the table all the time, something fresh, something unexpected. If I did have to pick one, though, I would pick Amon. I think some people already know that I'm a bit of an Amon fan. I ran him in a staff tournament a while back, and I typically have a lot of success with him, but I know that also we have different play styles. Like, I was talking with another player this weekend about how, for him, Xerxes 2, Xerxes the Fury of Lot, is a bit too much of a blunt instrument. But this guy is he's on a rhinoceros, charging into battle, smashing people. So yeah, he's more direct, more in your face. But then we've also got casters that for some people maybe they're too subtle, too intricate. So a lot of different play styles, broad appeal no matter what faction you're in. I think there's casters that are for everybody.
Well, that's all we have. Thank you very much for joining us on the channel today.
Thank you.
Good to see you.